Hello, good morning, and welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain. What's up?
I almost chorused. You started, hello, good morning, almost like I knew exactly what you were going to say.
Really?
I am Akide, good morning and welcome.
Okay.
Well, at least that means that the network here is not shut down.
If you say so.
One can say the same for the kind of disruptions that we have had here and there, especially in Zamfara State, where the governor was even given reasons as to why the network telecom service was shut down in the area, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around a viable reason for that, because of course the shutdown in Zamfara has affected something in the region of 3 to 4 states. And even the House of Representatives is also said to be advising the NCC to extend the shutdown as far as some local governments in Sokoto State. And, what is
Some local governments in Sokoto State?
Yep.
Wow.
And the local governments are Bodinga, Dangeshuni, and Tureta. And these are local governments that border Zamfara State. Yeah. Well, one of the things that occurred to us yesterday, while the program was on, was that the meeting of the northern governors, while that meeting was happening, or about the same time, or on the same day, within hours or so, there was some security disruptions in the environment as well, and that saw to the destruction of property, and some lives were taken as well. So we have seen the effect or the impact of network disruptions in time past, when people are unable to get any communication out to anyone, to no cry for help is able to go anywhere, simply because the only way that people could have done that would have been to use network services or telecom services at their disposal. But unfortunately, because of that shutdown, that couldn't happen. I don't know, Chamberlain, sincerely, I'm still trying to understand why, that needed to happen, because it's not only the people, the criminals, the bandits, the people, the insurgents that will be affected. People who can call for help will be affected. Medical services, whether we like it or not, will be affected. Remember that we're trying as much as possible to push technology into various sectors of our lives, including medicine. That's why for some years now we've been talking about telemedicine in Nigeria. Network shutdown means that cannot happen, and so many other things like that. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, no matter how viable or how reasonable the reasons may be.
Yeah, because if you saw the clips there, how lots of people they had to just go to the banks, because they thought, look, at least that's the basic thing that they had to do. So they gathered around the banks in the states there. So they expected that at least they needed some funds to transact businesses. And you see in that same report where some of them did say that they couldn't access funds from the banks, and as such they had to move to neighboring states to see how they can get those services done. So that is challenging, which we'll see soon. But we've got a lot to grapple with. Security is a huge challenge, and efforts that have been made to address it will be really, really crucial. Because, if you look at this, wherein the figures from NBC indicate that 13.9 million youths are unemployed, MBS, and then Nigeria's unemployment rate, which they say had increased to 33.3% in the fourth quarter of 2020. And so you thought, with this network shutdown, you would have thought that we might have been able to at least try and see, how do you even get those banks to access some of those
one of the things that has happened as a result of this, and I want to believe with all my heart that, of course, while government has had good intentions for doing the things that they needed to do, the effects, the whether or not this policy or this position of government, this intervention of government is hitting home would be arguable, and I hope that they'll be able to take stock. It's about 6 days already now, and part of the following the development, you know, one of the things that you will find out is that bandits have reportedly intensified their attacks in Zamfara and Katsina, looting foodstuff to stock up while the measures remain in place. And so I'm wondering, so if this is going on, in the first place, how do you even know whether or not, you know, attacks are happening in areas that cannot reach out to anybody for help?
It's a mixed bag, really, because you also get to see that, for instance, about deployment of some of these things, if banks can't, they need to leverage on the satellite networks, they need to leverage on fiber optic to ensure that people can do the basic things. Even though the state government that says, well, you need to bear with us, but they can't just, you know, sit back and nothing is done. It's going to be worse.
Well, so, we can only, you may want to, you may or may not have seen that report, but we want to let you have one more look at it. It's not just affected Zamfara State, as we have mentioned. You know, it's getting into Sokoto State, Katsina, maybe one or two, a number of other areas, you know, bordering that environment. And so if some 2.1 million telephone lines, according to reports available, are being affected, imagine how many lives are affected as a result in the ripple effect. Take a look at this story in case you've not seen it.
It's been 3 weeks since telecom services were cut off in Zamfara State to tackle the activities of bandits, but this has taken a toll on residents. Many find it difficult to make withdrawals from banking halls or use the automated teller and point-of-sale machines without telecommunication networks, compelling many to travel to neighboring states to carry out transactions. Banks that do manage to dispense contend with long queues.
Let me tell my parents if this will be.
Awam John is a youth corps member serving in Zamfara State. He's been finding it difficult to speak with his family back home due to the shutdown in telecom services. He's also appealing to the government to direct the commercial banks to work in full capacity to enable people access their funds to take care of their immediate needs.
We have more than 5 banks around. They should make provision so that people can use the ATM. You can see this ATM over here, it's not functioning. This ATM here is not functioning. You know, people, some persons don't even have money to eat. That's the truth. We need money, because without money you cannot run your daily transaction. So they should actually make the ATM machines like to be functional so that people can have access to funds.
But the state government is appealing to residents to be patient with the security measures and that it's aware of the inconveniences.
Government is not unaware of the hardship people are going through following the enforcement of the measures taken to curtail the activities of bandits and their collaborators. So government is pleading with the people to exercise more patience as the measures taken are yielding positive results.
The request by the state government for a shutdown in the telecom services was supposed to last for 2 weeks. That has now been extended indefinitely.
Welcome back. Let's start with Leadership newspaper today, and the first story is about power shift. Northern groups divided over Kaduna declaration. That's the big one right there on the front page. So you thought that it was a common front, but alas, you get to see this on the front page of Leadership newspaper here today.
You know, it's even interesting that, you know, this is coming now, because there are rumors that, you know, while the statement of the Northern Governors Forum says it was a unanimous decision, there are rumors that, you know, maybe some might not be in complete sync with the entirety of everything.
How the rumors get started?
I mean,
oh
so,
boy.
But then, of course, the statement of the Northern Governors Forum is official. That's the official position. Any other rumor, if they want it to be valid, and then put it in a statement.
How about this one? Look at the rider. Middle belt Youths disown northern governors, traditional rulers. Resolution portends bleak future. Nigeria collapsing under northern leadership. Ohaneze, you're sick. ACF fires back. Oof. Wow. Okay. You'd have thought that there'll be a little bit of decorum right there. But there you go. That's the leadership today.
You missed that part where the two chambers are in supremacy battle over bill's concurrence.
Okay, maybe other papers might highlight it. Oh okay.
I wonder how that... Anyway, as you said, maybe we'll catch it on other papers. The Daily Independent this morning has this one. 77 oil firms, OFG, 2.6 trillion naira as it borrows for budget deficit. Well, here we are again. It would seem like this issue of borrowing isn't going anywhere anytime soon, but that's what we have on the front page there. There's also that one on page 30, perhaps has something to do, well, doesn't have anything to do with the pictures, where attackers of security agents will face justice. Sanwo-Olu vows. Find the story on page 30. And there was a little bit of furore in Abuja yesterday, and that's what you have reflected in the pictures there. Some of the victims of security operatives and Islamic movement in Nigeria, AMN, clash during shared procession to mark the religious ritual in Abuja. Wonder how? I don't understand. But right under that one, you have 2023 presidency. Don't set nation on fire. Northern youths warn southern northern governors. Well, it sounds like, could we say that the youths are rising up now? Look at the riders. Middle Belt Forum blasts northern governors for opposing power rotation. Northern governors' position violates the constitution at Degborua. The story continues on the inside pages of the Daily Independent newspaper this morning, and several others. Of course, we pointed it to those pictures. The story is right above the nameplate. Shiites, please disagree on death of 8 IMN members after clash. That's the Daily Independent today.
Take a look at Daily Trust next. 2023, that's the theme of what we're talking about. Expectations, doubts as Jega, Utomi, others mobilize against APC, PDP. Why movement will fail? Lawyers. Present arrangement favors two parties. Dons, they are not a threat. PDP, APC. So there you go. Yeah, usually there's a lot that's supposed to go into some of these things, but perhaps who knows what context, which is always important for people to just take a look at that and see how you could put that in proper perspective. But right above that lead story, you've got electoral bill. Senate reps may clash over e-transmission of results. So I always told you that there were going to be other perspectives.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah, from other dailies in terms of, how they see or their angle to some of the events that occurred, which will inform how the headlines are cast, as we say in the profession. So there you go. That is Daily Trust this morning.
The Daily Times has this one. Ngige, NMA, NARD meet over strike. Let's just hope that this is going somewhere. As NMA blames former NARD leadership for lingering strike. Wow. Former NARD leadership, a bad example to practice of medicine, says Labour Minister. Johesu reiterates threat to shut down hospitals over healthcare facilities. That story continues on page 2 of the Daily Times this morning. And the Daily Times also has above its nameplate that same story. Reps Senate in supremacy battle over bill's concurrence. Whatever that means, find the story continue on page 2 from the front page of the paper this morning. PVCs for new registrants in Anambra ready October 7. That is from INEC. And on business, on the same front page, experts caution commend CBN ahead of October 1 e-Naira launch. Just so you know, October 1 is Friday.
So what? You're going to thank God it's Friday?
Well, I don't know. It's
on the day?
Yeah, e-Naira launch. You know, the CBN has been talking about Nigeria's own crypto currency of sorts, but e-Naira.
So they know there's something there.
Well,
in that sphere, that sector, that space.
How much value will it carry compared to, I mean, so long as it has the Naira?
Ultimately impact on Naira. They need to watch the space for that one. All right. Nigerian Tribune is the very next one we should be taking a look at right now, if we can just let that come up this morning. So the front page of the Tribune, there you go. For rejecting power shift, Northern governors under fire. 1999 Constitution, PDP, APC constitutions support zoning at Degberoa. Northern governors supported zoning in 2006. Why not in 2021? Obani queries. Akinyemi warns against consequences if negotiation fails. It exposes them as hypocrites. Pandef. Power must shift in 2023. YCE. Survival of Nigeria beyond constitutional provision. Wale Oshun. North can't rule Nigeria back to back. NGF. Paradigm shift in interest of every Nigerian. Ohaneze. So, quite a lot there, isn't it?
Boy, it's certainly a lot packed in there. I'm just waiting for how everything is going to evolve, as we say. I mean, that statement coming from the Middle Belt Forum, I mean, to a large extent, one would have wondered, isn't Middle Belt Forum the northeast, northwestern, north central of
It is Middle Belt Forum. That's what they call, that's what we see here.
How many states? Where are the states in the Middle Belt Forum?
That is in the detail, pages 17 and 18. I guess they'll talk about that.
I mean, just as you said, I think one of the front pages, I think it's the Leadership newspaper that talked about the division. So this is, like...
Yeah, so just beneath that lead story, you see violence in Abuja as Shiites allege police killed 8 members. We only dispersed them with tear gas ascribed to police. But we saw some images that made the rounds yesterday about this matter, and there were men who were clad in police uniforms who were also seen, participating in some actions that were, for want of words, horrific. And you'd have thought, goodness, is this really happening? Are these men of our police force carrying on as such? The thing about that is that, they were horrific. You never would have thought any such thing can happen in any sane society. So it won't be out of place if the police authorities make a statement about that, because the video is all over the place. In fact, they have to make a statement about it. Are they your men? If they are, why is that? How come?
I think there are deeper issues, definitely.
We're not animals.
We know that there are deeper issues. This thing wouldn't have happened or shouldn't have happened if certain things had been done to... I mean, yesterday one of the guests that we had was talking about, was it on Monday, was saying that if we had good governance, many people will have no reason to complain about anything. So, that was the grandson of Tafawa Balewa, the first prime minister. So, if that, was a good representation, all of our sentiments will taper down quite significantly.
Sometimes you wonder, how did we get there? But we certainly can't continue with those kind of conduct. So, because if they don't make a comment about it, it will be assumed that they condone it.
Absolutely.
And that's not what they want. I don't think that's what they want people to believe.
Nobody wants that. Neither the police nor the people that they are supposed to protect. The Vanguard newspaper is next this morning, and it's looking at pretty much the same lead story as everyone else. Hard knocks for northern governors overstand on VAT power shift. Find the story on page 5. Look at the riders. They're seeking breakup of Nigeria. There's NGF. Another perspective, the same.
So who's NGF, huh?
Exactly.
What state is NGF?
Now listen, as Middle Belt people, not part of North, Supreme Court should resolve VAT tussle. I don't know what that means, but who are the Middle Belters in Nigeria? As you said, the details are on the inside page. Northern governors not sincere. Afenifere says, Nigeria collapsing under North's rule. Ohaneze says, The hypocrites, Pandef says. They are not properly guided, says Adigburua. He said that on our program here. I support northern governors to teach South a lesson. Or mockery.
What does that mean?
Well, that shouldn't be a north-south war, says Olaweko Hashim. Experts differ on VAT collection by states. All of that packed on page 5 of the paper this morning. Right under the nameplate, banks intensify competition for deposits, raise interest rates by 140%. What does that mean? Find the story on page 19. Deposits grow 6.6% to 34 trillion naira in the first half of the year. Zenith Bank leads deposit rate increase. Stanbic IBTC leads deposit growth. Find all of that right on the front page there. Mr. and Mrs. Mrs. telling Mr. I told you that my friend is celebrating her birthday next week. And if you say that the lace material is too expensive, what do I wear to the party? Mr. says, wear a smile.
Okay, we'll regret it afterwards.
Well, the back page has Banger Sports. PSG 2, Man City 0.
What a match.
Messi opens PSG goal account.
What a match.
And look at this one. Tyson mocks AJ Usyk. Well, that fight isn't getting the kind of hype that is expected, but that's what you have. So many other stories you'll find in the Guardian newspaper. Beg your pardon, the Vanguard newspaper today.
Well, look at New Telegraph. Recover 2.65 trillion naira to Federation accounts. Naiti. Being debt owed by 77 oil gas companies. And then you see Senate orders oil gas firms to relocate to operational bases. This is something that's been on for a long time as to what they want to do, how they should do it. So that perhaps
I'm pretty sure that there is a lot more to that.
Of course there will be.
I'm sure there's a lot more to that.
And then you see why we use NURTW for elections. Ascribe to INEC. E-voting reps set up 7-man committee to meet Senate. So
I think it's still about that same concurrence thing that we were talking about the other time.
Yeah, but then this NURTW that INEC uses for elections, is it viable? Is it way to go? Should it be continued? Who knows? And don't forget that, that's New Telegraph this morning.
The Nigerian News Direct, Senate, it's on high production costs. Senate seeks relocation of oil firms to host communities. That's the stories on page 22. And this one, guns proliferation. Nigerian Navy disowns officer over allegations against Chadian soldiers. Find the details on the inside pages, page 3 to be specific.
And then the Guardian will end with this one. 77 oil firms owe Nigeria $6.48 billion amid continuous borrowing. Nigeria's debt may hit 40 trillion naira by 2022.
Whoa.
Outstanding tax enough to offset budget deficit, says ex-CITM boss.
Really?
Remittances from taxable Nigerians poor, like laments. Experts insist FG borrowing to evade in-country potential. Whoa. And then World Heart Day, experts are warning on spike in heart disease cases and deaths. So you need to be careful out there. So that's it. That is it. We'll look at some of the dailies here this morning. We will be back in a moment. Stay with us.
It's a joint meeting of the Northern governors and key traditional rulers from the northern states. and the meeting place is the Government House in Kaduna State. The Sultan of Sokoto and the Governor of Kaduna State raised concern over the insecurity situation in the north.
And I believe we are always ready to partner. I'd like to thank some of the governors that we've known, or even all the governors who have done a lot to unravel the problem of security in our various states.
Our region faces serious challenges. The economic situation in the country has affected us. The insecurity has destroyed rural economies, and many other challenges about federalism stare us in the face.
After several hours of meeting behind closed doors, the governors resolved that the call by their southern counterparts that the presidency be zoned to the south is unconstitutional. According to them, the 1999 Constitution as amended states that an elected president must meet the constitutional requirements, which include scoring majority votes and also score at least 25% of the votes cast in 2/3 of the states of the Federation, and nowhere is zoning allowed in the Constitution.
The forum unanimously condemned the statement by the Southern Governors Forum that the presidency must go to the south. The statement is quite contradictory with the provision of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended, that the elected president shall A. score the majority votes, B. score at least 25% of the votes cast in 2/3 states of the Federation, C. in the case of run-up, simple majority will win the election.
The governors also react to the controversy on who collects value-added tax, a matter which is currently before the Supreme Court.
The Northern State Governors Forum considered the ongoing national debate on collection of value-added tax, VAT. As responsible leaders, while we are concerned by the fact that the matter is sub judice, we, however, for the purposes of educating the public, make the following observations. A. The judgment of the Federal High Court calls to question the constitutionality of VAT, withholding tax, education tax, Niger Delta Development Commission, National Information Technology Development Agency, 13% derivation, National Economic Development Council, and many other currently levied and collected by the Federal Government of Nigeria and the Federal Inland Revenue Service. B. Rivers and Lagos State government had enacted their own VAT laws, and the Southern Governors Forum have expressed support for this course of action. C. VAT is being confused by these state governments as a sales tax. If every state enacted its own VAT law, multiple taxation will result in increase of prices of goods and services and collapse in interstate trade. Until and unless the Supreme Court pronounces judgment on the substantive matter between Rivers State and the federal government, the matter is sub judice, and Northern State Governors Forum would respect this.
This position conveyed by the governor of Plateau State is unanimously agreed to by the governors of the 19 northern states. It now remains to be seen how their counterparts in the south will respond to these strong views from the Northern Governors Forum.
Welcome back. So joining us to weigh in on this subject matter, we've got Dr. Ahmed Sulaiman, who is a lecturer in public law at Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. And then we also have Catch Ononuju, who joins us from our studios in Abuja. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Let me start with you, Dr. Sulaiman. On this matter, yes, of course, different perspectives, and there will continue to be different opinion on this subject matter. How does this come across to you, having heard the position of the northern governors and some traditional rulers who attended the meeting?
I'm not surprised with what happened this week. We've been expecting it since July, especially arising out of the position taken by the southern governors about president must come from the South. But the issue here, let me put a context. I want you to contextualize the issue from a historical point of view. The position of the northern governors is that this is not constitutional. Now, in reality, it is a convention that have been brought up to keep peace between Nigerians. Now, but the issue here is that you have to look back into Nigerian history. Since the beginning of Nigeria independence, there were a lot of crises that moved into climax and anti-climax of the civil war. After that, some Nigerian leaders learned a lesson. And the lesson is that whenever Nigeria is at an edge, there is always to keep Nigeria together is the fact of power sharing. But the problem with power sharing is that it has not been given constitutional backing. So because of this constitutional backing, politicians take advantage of these fault lines, just like the South have taken advantage of this fault line before. But this is a time where educated Nigerians to come together. The threat they are causing, the hypertension, the tension rising in Nigeria is too fragile, we are pushing Nigeria too much to the edge. If you read the book written by Tony Momo, Experience in Disintegration, this fact has been a recurring decimal in Nigerian history. We are not learning, we need to learn, we are not progressing, we need to learn from global development. Chamberlain, let me cite global example here. Every country, every set of...
Just hang on a minute, before you get to that next point, could you shed some light on what you mean by just as the South has taken advantage of the fault lines before?
Yes. Now, Nigeria has been built up on some fault lines. One, federalism, the issue of federalism. Two, the issue of restructuring. These are fault lines that all regions, all politicians from all regions try to capitalize on in order to score a political point. You'll come to realize that after all this hypertension, they will come to settle down and they will understand themselves. This is like a bargaining coin. Everybody is throwing in a bargaining coin. Just like when they start feel like pushing, there is so much hamper on the structuring, there's so much hamper on, for instance, this current VAT issue.
So how exactly or specifically has the South taken advantage of the said fault lines?
Yeah. Now, for instance, this is a convention, and a convention is not a large constitutional backing. It's a product of bargaining. So instead of louding it up in newspaper and setting common Nigerians against each other, isn't it better, Chamberlain, to sit down as politicians, try to bargain, negotiate? Chamberlain, if you are looking for courtship, you don't go intimidating your fiancé, you must marry me. You find a way of winning. Now, although as a person, I don't even like the idea of insisting that a president should come from the north or should come from the south. But if the politicians are still leading us this way, they should stop intimidating themselves. They should stop raising so much pressure on it. What advantage has the resolution and declaration they made July given to Southern Presidency? In fact, it has even raised so much temper. Instead of that, just from that time to now. Yes.
Okay, having heard your opening comments, let's bring in Mr. Onoju as well on this subject matter. Mr. Onoju, were you expecting this as well? Because, I mean, Dr. Sulaiman said, well, he's not surprised at this stance.
Yes, thank you very much. I was expecting this because where the problem started was Buhari's weaponization of nepotism. And we knew the way he was going about it, he was going to ultimately become very frightened that if a Northerner comes from, a Southerner becomes president, that all those things he was doing to trying to now force advantage for a single ethnicity will all be scattered. Because when Obasanjo was president, the same thing was stacked up during the military era. That's why you're seeing a lot of what they're holding on to are advantages they stacked up during military era. When Obasanjo became president, Obasanjo neutralized it all, removed all the soldiers they put everywhere, removed all the weaponizing nepotism, platforms they built, and returned the country into a place where everybody had a sense of belonging. So the minute Buhari became president, and Buhari started that his pro-Fulani strategy of not only ethnically cleansing all the nationalities of national institutions and federal parastatals, top hierarchy positions, also cleansing some in Katsina, Kankara, Kaduna, Plateau, Benue, Taraba. So, and what you simply knew, these people he brought in from Mali, Central African Republic, Mauritania, and other places to come and take those lands after cleansing. The minute Buhari left, the indigenous people were very likely to chase those people away and take back their land. And it was as a strategy, fears that if Buhari leaves, those legacies will be wiped up, because next president, if he comes from somewhere else, will simply return Nigeria back to normality. That is what is driving this. Well, so based on that fear that whoever comes will neutralize Buhari's nepotism games and return the country back to normality, that's why you're seeing them doing this. I saw this when they were flying stories of...
If you can hear me on this same issue, Dr. Ononuju, just 1 second, if you can hear me. There are those who believe that it shouldn't matter, and I want to believe that you would agree with that as well. It shouldn't matter where any leader in Nigeria comes from if we will have good governance. There are a number of people who have said that, so that it shouldn't matter if the leader, whoever it is that is in office at any given point in time, is ensuring good governance for the good of all. But there is something that you're also aware of here, especially in this whole conversation, concerning specifically the issue of rotation of presidency, power shift, so to speak. Since this Fourth Republic began, it's always been a conversation that we have had. And right now, it seems it's the same thing that is happening again. As far as you are concerned, where do you stand on this matter?
Well, the rotation and primarily the issue of affirmative action, which in Nigeria is called a quota system, was actually arranged so as to accommodate the North. And then when we also came to everything we're doing, we say there has to be federal character to give people a sense of belonging. But only that federal character will ensure that our diverse, heterogeneous society have a sense of belonging in what we call the Nigerian experiment. But where you will, as you've seen, just the way Buhari has weaponized nepotism, a lot of people are not given a sense of belonging. That's why you're seeing the youth who are not as gentle as we, the elderly, will now embrace separatism as their own way of protesting that. And Buhari is going this far to get these governors to say they will never hand over power, the power will only stay with them. Don't forget, a lot of indigenous people in the northern part of Nigeria.
Can you confirm that position of the northern governors, just 1 second, just 1 second, it's a meeting of governors. Can you confirm that there is evidence from you that the position of the northern governors came from the president?
Yes, yes.
Do you have documentary evidence to the effect? Do you have documentary evidence to the effect?
There is, the northern governors historically do not act without the body language of the president saying go ahead and do it.
But do you have documentary evidence to this particular claim that you have made?
I do not have document for this, but I have historical conventions to show you that none of them have ever stood up or gone against any policy President Buhari has vouched support for.
Okay, let's go to Dr. Sulaiman on this same issue. Well, Dr. Sulaiman, when we had this conversation with Mr. Ebonlu Alegburua yesterday concerning the issue of power rotation and all, his position came from Section 14, Sub 2 of the 1999 Constitution, which says that, which provides that no section of the country should express or entertain dominance over other segments of the Constitution. And for him, as far as he is concerned, that is good ground for power rotation, which according to him is enshrined in the Constitution on the manifestos of both the APC and the PDP, the two leading parties in Nigeria. So concerning this issue of power rotation, should we really be making an issue of it?
Now, seriously, I agree with you. But first, let me clear the misconception. That is not an express provision for power rotation, power shift. It's not that I'm against power shift, but there are two things with power shift. If power shift will give us peace for some time so that Nigerians will grow and groom leaders that will now lead us in spite of wherever they come, it's welcome with me. But people fail to realize the root of power shift. The root of power shift arises out of reality of fragility of Nigeria and out of experience of Biafra war. You know, every war, especially terrible wars, leave behind an experience and progress in humanity. For instance, First World War brought off a lot of development. Second World War, after which occurred between 1939 and 1945, brought in the United Nations Human Rights Declaration in 1947, Geneva Convention in 1949. A lot of developments globally developed after war. So out of Biafran war, Nigerians realized the need to keep the nation together. And that is why federal institutions like, NYC come in. That is what brought about federal character. That is what brought about power shift after the June 12 saga and all that. Now, this reality, because among the politicians, you still have reasonable ones who, when the country pushes itself to an edge, just like Tony Momo captured in his book, Experience in Disintegration, after the June 12, you have reasonable people who voice out to speak. And common Nigerians want peace. And that is why immediately after June 12, Northerners were ready. Even common Northerners were ready for the two contestants to come from the South. So this is an inbuilt internal arrangement. Now, when somebody comes to destroy this inbuilt arrangement with an assumed constitutional intimidation, you have a problem. And as far as we are concerned now, we are having a serious problem that you have Nigerians, even like my co-commentator now is discussing, you can see him talking in terms of they and us. And when you have Nigerians now approaching national issues from they and us, then it is dangerous. A lot of countries have faced this, and the end was catastrophic. And that is why some of us are saying that instead of raising this hyper, all our governors who are now using their enormous power to cause this problem, because the South, this thing is coming from Southern, it started in July from Southern governors. The response is coming now from Northern governors. And these governors, they are not the exclusivity of Nigerian interests. I think it's high time for educated ones among Nigerians to start speaking up against on these they and us.
So, Dr. Sulaiman, yeah, just a minute. So, when you say that after the war there was a need to keep the country together, does that then mean that, does that mean that a section of the country will dominate leadership and keep other sections of the country out? Because, I mean, that's always a point where people misconstrue it when people refer to that terminology in this case.
Yes, I agree with you. I don't believe in unity that dominates. I also believe in fair play. But I want fair play and domination to be an internal development, because you don't force it. When you now employ divisive politics to achieve in the name of fair play, you'll be creating, it's like Obama said, whoever uses division to achieve power will now have division as his confronting his governance. experience have shown that this pattern they are approaching to leadership will, at the end of the day, produce a leader who, at the end of the day, will always think of where am I coming from first. Now, look at the way he's talking about Buhari presidency. Now, as far as Buhari presidency is concerned, some Nigerians are looking at it as northern presidency. But Chamberlain, what do we think of a situation where we have talented professionals, Nigerians? See what you people are doing in channels. So where we have professionals coming, I don't mind wherever they come from. Let them come from Akwa Ibom, let them come from Port Harcourt, Maiduguri, or whatsoever. It's high time we take our destiny out of these politicians that use us for power. He's now talking about tribe. Chamberlain, the reality of Nigeria is that we don't have tribes. There are only two tribes. There are only two tribes in Nigeria: the elites and the masses. They employ this tribal division to gain power. But as soon as they get the power, they move out. A lot of these people who sound tribal position, at the end of the day, you see them changing position, changing party. So the reality is that let's avoid talking in tribal or religious terms.
Well, Dr. Ononuju, you've listened. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure that we'll get Dr. Sulaiman back in good enough time. So, Dr. Ononuju, this conversation is definitely unending, and a number of people are wondering, this whole drama, so to speak, that is happening is because of the class, caliber, or style of politics and politicians that we have on our hands right now. And there are those who believe that it's about time we evolved a completely different set of politicians who will obliterate the us-them dichotomy that's only, served their interests over time and give the power to the people indeed. How do you think we should go about that?
I think we are about getting there, because if you also ask me, I will tell you there are advantages to be gotten from Buhari's incompetence in managing our diversity, because through his weaponization of nepotism, Nigerians have woken up, and that waking up has forced some sort of unity among some ranks that I have historically never ever noticed. I saw Nigerians in New York campaigning this past 1 week, united in a way that they have never been before. It was always easy to divide them at home, but to see them unite to campaign for a better society with people from disparate ethnicities, for me, that is a plus. So I give that positive to President Buhari's use of nepotism. I believe President Buhari's incompetence has unintendedly united Nigerians in a way that I think brings advantage to the Nigerian project. I also think what the Northern governors have done is also very good, unintendedly. Those of us who didn't understand, all we were saying that, look, because of Buhari's weaponized nepotism, it will be very difficult for him and his people to allow power to shift, because if it is shift, they will be afraid that the Obasanjo equalization will also occur again. And just when they did that meeting 2 days ago, I was excited that they have finally gotten me right. And it was expected. It was expected. That's why you saw them playing with all sorts of options.
Forgive me, Dr. Ononuju. I'm wondering how you can help, because what I'm looking for, what I'm hoping to hear from you, I'm not particularly getting yet. But let me ask that same question in a different way. Section 15, sub 2 of the 1999 Constitution as amended says, and I quote, "National integration shall be actively encouraged, whilst discrimination on the grounds of place of origin, sex, religion, status, ethnic or linguistic association or ties shall be prohibited." While this may have been happening over time, it would seem like from much of what you have said, you are not actively discouraging some of these things that are mentioned in the Constitution.
I discourage it by speaking up against those who practice it. That's why I have been condemning Buhari's employment of nepotism as policy.
In that same vein, Dr. Ononuju, just one second, Dr. Ononuju, just one second. In that same vein, just one second. In that same vein, rather than condemn, why not just give counsel? What are the things that ought to be done that are not being done, as opposed to just condemning? You know very well, much better than I do, that what they call, constructive criticism. Some of the theories that intelligent academics like you would propose, would always propound, is the style of politics practiced by President Obama. While attacks were coming at him, he was just focused on the issues. Can we focus on the issues here and leave out the personalities?
Yes. The very nice way right now to heal, if you want me to suggest, to quell agitations, take the presidency to the southeast. The two parties should take the presidency to the southeast. We did that when the Yorubas were angry at the annulment of Abela's election. The two parties took their presidency to the southwest, and in doing that, they quell the crisis by the people on the Duduwa front. Take the presidency to the southeast of Nigeria, and you will see a champion will come from there to become president. And then we'll start to tell the young people who are currently involved in separatism that that may not be the right way to go, that there is, after all, intentions to reintegrate everybody. I think taking the presidency to the southeast will not only stop the insurgency in the north, it will also stop the crisis and the separatism agitation in the southwest, heal the south, and give the young people a sense of belonging. But when you continue to do things that seems to exclude them, exclude their people, exclude their areas in infrastructural emplacement, it then gives them the impetus to resign themselves to despair. I don't think we should teach despair to young people.
So what we'll do is we'll go to break, but when we return, we'll let both of you talk to us about solutions. We want to hear from you. What further solutions would you proffer such that we all move forward? So that will be when we return, as we then wind down. So don't go away. Welcome back. It's our concluding moments on this subject matter. So, gentlemen, now talking about your solutions, and then perhaps explain why. Because at the end of the day, it's clear, I mean, maybe not too clear to a lot of people, but we know that politicians have a way of sorting themselves out behind the scenes. So, not a good idea for the country to work itself up on some of this subject matter. Let me start with you, Dr. Sulaiman. What would you suggest such that, in the interest of peace, equity, and justice, be done, especially as it has to do with the next general elections moving the country forward? Perhaps in consideration of the situation of the economy as well. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. We have individual expectations, and we have things that are supposed to be done by the leaders. As individuals, let us realize that Nigeria is in transition. Since the beginning of this democracy for republic, after every two elections, there is always so much tension around that almost breaks the country. After Obasanjo's two tenure, there was that problem. After Jonathan's two tenure, there was that problem. Nigeria is approaching that dangerous time. So this is the time for people individually to observe restraint. You can see I've not spoken in the way my colleague have just spoken. I've not allowed my sentiment to take over me. I've not allowed rumor to guide my thinking. As an individual, this is what we should do. As governors, our leaders, they should stop using politics to divide us just to get what they want. Let us start grooming. Governors have been given so much power under Nigerian federal institution. I wish I had the time to point out since independence to this time how we have been moving from confederation with tri-unity government and how our front lines have always been setting us against each other. Now these governors that are so powerful, they are now setting us against each other. But they are very good examples for them to learn. There is a governor, I don't want to start mentioning them names. There is a governor in the south who used his position instead of dividing to even bring people from other states, groom leadership, and that leadership is having an influence nationwide now. Let these governors, instead of dividing us, let us start grooming leaders that have capacity, leaders that can develop. Let Nigerians realize that the world have gone so far and the world is not waiting for us. Let us realize that every country now looks at its own fault line, comes up with what to check that fault line and move ahead. Malaysia, Indonesia, they have problems. But what they did, they look at their fault line, they develop a national common identity, they forge this common language, common identity, and move ahead. Now, other countries that fail to manage this end up in catastrophe. United States had fault line, they even fought.
So, Sulaiman, you know, the thing is, in our present situation, and in consideration of the current position of northern governors and traditional rulers, and that of the southern governors on where they think the president should come from in 2023, how do we specifically address that such that everyone can indeed see that, well, really and truly, this has been done in the interest of equity, peace, and justice? I mean, so that, you know, when they say it should not just be done, it must be seen to have been done.
Chamberlain, both of them are not serious. I'm telling you, seriously, they will come to settle. And you will say, I've said that. That one is not a problem. The main problem is for Nigerians to realize that it is time. This generation of changing, we have gone into 2 or 3 generations of powership. Let us now start moving away from an idea of my president into an idea of a president for Nigeria. Let us have people now speaking for Nigeria. But for now, like you said, my advice is that Nigerians should try to adopt fair play. I also believe in fair play. I also believe that if a president comes from one side, another side should also have a president. I agree in that, but I don't agree in intimidation. I agree in a system where Abiola was able to go to Kano and buy more votes than a Kano indigent who was worship Pupa. I believe in a system where, like in 1999, northern politicians come together and they all concluded that let the president come from the south. Let us, Nigeria, start going into a healing system, not a wounding system. And you can see some of our leaders and politicians are not adopting that. And that is where the problem is coming from. Because if you divide, if you keep on with this divisive approach, the problem will not be solved. Politicians are just using that as a bargaining tool.
Okay, just hang on a minute. Dr. Nonuju, go ahead and give us what will your solutions be? Just as we said, at the end of the day, they will sort themselves out, and the people perhaps will just get the short end of the stick, and then they'll carry on not knowing that they have sorted themselves out. How do we mainstream the people as opposed to just letting politicians run the show?
The people should use the current happenings as awakening calls. Wake up and be involved in the politics of Nigeria. It's when they are seen to be aloof, to not mind what goes on, that's when those who intend to undermine them and their heritage will continue in their chosen fashion. The people must wake up and be involved in the politics of Nigeria. The gentleman who said, my colleague, that I speak differently from how he speaks, we're very different. He works for a government institution. I'm a free Nigerian, so I'm very autonomous. I can express myself the way I wish without fear of any government's reactions. No, so he can talk the way he talks because he works for a government institution. We're not the same, so you cannot compare two of us. I will continue to put my voice in regards to give voice to those whose pains cannot be expressed. And I know I speak in line with the position of the Middle Belt Congress, who released a letter yesterday signed by Dr. Podus Pogu. I agree with that letter asking that the presidency be rotated. The same way Governor Zulum said before, the presidency be rotated so that all parts of Nigeria should have a sense of belonging. We have 6 geopolitical zones. Let people understand those 6 geopolitical zones harbor people who belong to this diverse country. Let our heterogeneous nature be reflected in the way that we allow inclusion, in a way that all parts of Nigeria can have a sense of belonging. If there are laws in our books and they are challenged in court, let what the court say be respected, even if it does not favor me or favor whoever is my friend. Let's learn to live according to the rule of law. Let those who claim population show it, not just only during election, but also in satellite imagery. Let us capture the population. Let us also capture that population in school enrollment. Let's capture it in VAT payment. Let's capture it in economic activity. You don't just fraudulently write numbers and then use control over INEC and then the army to keep those numbers, because they've been fraudulently kept that way since the days of military rule. We must now begin to allow for those things that are seen to be transparent, that will build confidence in the polity, like open, free, transparent voting, like free transmission of electoral results. You don't come to the South when it's election, you bring in the card reader. When it is in the North, you leave it so that numbers can be inflated. Then after some time, it becomes convention. Oh, the number from Kara Namuda is 6 million people. The one from Aba is only 240,000 people. How can those things make sense? You now give more numbers to Katsina than you give to Ibadan. You give more numbers suddenly now to places like Huntua than you actually will give to Owerri. And after some time you say that is how it should be. That is a fraud. We must stop the numbers fraud. Allow economic growth driven by champions who understand that it is the aggregation of several players in the economy that actually gives you stimulus, not government policy of borrowing money to spend on recurrent expenditure, or borrowing money to spend on Niger Republic. And when you ask President Buhari, he say he has his cousins in Niger Republic. So
okay, let's bring in Dr. Sulaiman on this one.
Look at what we are, 98 to 1.
Just hang on a minute. So, Dr. Sulaiman, in context, I mean, you know, some of these issues, I know you did reference fault lines that politicians like to take advantage of. How do we address that? And then, given the current back and forth as to what should happen, who should it be in 2023? So, as an independent, perhaps not tied to any political leanings, what would your position be concerning where the president or presidency should come from in 2023?
Thank you very much, Chamberlain. This is a very good question to round up this discussion, but let me clear a misconception before I proceed. First of all, I want my colleague to know that I'm a lawyer, because this gives me the knowledge of my rights that nobody can deny, even my employer. Second, I'm an academic, and I choose being an academic because of the academic freedom it entails. Third, I'm a human rights activist, and when you switch, I even go against the government. That is why I led the Occupy Kano opposition protest in Kano a few years back. Now, so whatever I'm speaking out of the truth as I see it, not because of favoritism or linkage to any government. Now, coming back to your question, you people as media have a role to play. And the role you have to play is to give voice to areas. Let some of us come up and take our destiny into our hands. Let us not leave our destiny in the hand of politicians who divide us, have power, and as soon as they have power, they come to dine and wine together. Let us realize that all we need in Nigeria now, of course, as far as this public tension is concerned, is better to give a sense of belonging and let the power shift. But let us, after this time, start thinking of grooming Nigerians to lead us. Because these problems that are on ground, there are so much economic problems in the city. We have so much, especially if you travel abroad. You will now realize that there are a lot of things that cannot be solved by a regional or tribal presidency. These problems require somebody that have been groomed, that understand global trends and can now think locally to move Nigeria up. Chamberlain, Nigeria have serious challenges. I feel so bad that Nigeria at this point is still bickering over the president coming from the south or coming from the north, or whether you assess a president and call him anyhow, any name, because he's not coming from your region. I would like us to have a situation where Nigerians start thinking of capacity. For instance, Nigerians now are thinking of Goodluck Jonathan. Some Nigerians are now calling Goodluck Jonathan. Why? Because some of them, at the end of the day, they assess and they saw some qualities in him of bringing Nigerians together. I'm not saying he must be the best candidate, but for instance, I'm just looking at the available chances. For instance, there are a lot of people talking about Tinubu. Tinubu has proved himself by grooming leaders. Some people are thinking of Tambuwal. Tambuwal may be in PDP, but he has proved his leadership capacity when he was speaker. And there are a lot of Southerners that have very good capacity. Let us start thinking of concentrating on Nigerians that have capacity. And there are a lot of Nigerians that think in Nigerian terms. For instance, Sunusi Lamido, when he was Emir of Kano, he did a lot of things to protect Igbos and others that are in Sabongari, and he even ensured that they are recognized as indigenous in Kano. There are a lot of politics that he intervened. Why can't we have Nigerians that speak for Nigerians in the interest of Nigerians, not in the interest of their tribe, not in the interest of their religion, but in the interest of the whole Nigeria, because our destiny is attached and linked to Nigeria. If it wins, we win. If it fails, we fail.
Well, you and Dr. Ononuju seem to be in agreement on this matter, so let me take it back to him. And this particular issue of grooming leaders, Dr. Ononuju was speaking the other time, just before we went on break, that we should raise youths, we should involve youths in the process. So, Dr. Ononuju, I'd like to ask you, how do you suggest that we go about that one in particular? Just as you said, a sizable number of people believe that the youths have been left behind, greatly, largely. In terms of grooming leaders, and you referenced that earlier just before we went on that break, how do you suggest we begin to engage and integrate the young people? There are also those who believe, permit me for emphasizing this, that if we hand power to if we do any transition with the youths now, and it's not really done well, we haven't groomed them and we hand power to them, they may not be able to do things the way we expect, no matter how good our intentions may be. So in terms of grooming leaders for the next generation, how, in your opinion, should we be going about that?
The number one thing that excludes the youths is the weaponization of nepotism. If you allow youths who do well to come into the stream of leadership, youths are the ones driving Flutterwave. It's youths that are suddenly involved in the fintech companies that you are having foreigners invest hundreds of millions of dollars in those fintech companies. If the youth have the intelligence to do those things, and then you're having adults, elders, borrow money for recurrent expenditure, you don't need to ask yourself who will do better. The youths have grown up to be Nigerians, and we must allow them to be Nigerians.
Well,
and
Dr. Ononuju,
to allow the youth inclusion.
The question is, how do we begin to engage the youth, involve them in the process? I mean, you've talked about the private sector, and you know very well, as many people would agree, that there is a difference between running a public sector and running the public sector and running the private sector. Completely different things. So, in terms of running government for the good of governance, for the good and governance of millions of Nigerians, how do we begin to engage the youth? They have opportunity, they have advantage in technology, just as you have said. How do we bring all that into the process? How?
I tell you an instance. I know millions of youths who have graduated but cannot be employed because of our policy of nepotism has been used by the current.
You're not speaking to the youth, Dr. Ononuju. You're not speaking to the youth.
Anywhere have a sense
just
of belonging.
Just tell us how do you think we can integrate them in politics? How do we integrate youth
exactly
in politics?
What I'm saying. They're already
from the
involved.
local governments to the state governments to the federal government. How?
Remember, in politics, they on their own took charge last year when they organized NSAS. What did we do? We went to Kefi prison and brought prisoners to attack youths in Abuja. We introduced violence in Lagos. It is us, the elderly, that introduced those violence. It is us also now implementing the false flag operations, you tag operations by unknown gunmen. It is us. All we're trying to do is to do those false flag operations so as to paint our youth as if they are terrorists. We must stop these things against the youth. So all I'm saying, show good leadership. Nigeria is not yet a nation. Allow Nigeria to progress to becoming a nation. A nation does have ideals. It's an experiment. That's what you call a nation. Experiment built on ideas and ideals, and you allow those experiments to actually take shape, not excluding the youth through weaponization of nepotism.
At least it's good to know that both of you agree.
Issue excluding matured youth, intelligent youth, capable youth from contributing.
Well, it's good to hear that
involved in politics. They organize elsewhere.
It's good to know that both of you agree
against them
on empowering the youths, mainstreaming them in the scheme of things. Because I mean, it's one thing for different groups in political leadership to make such statements. It's a different dynamic when they get to their political parties or amongst themselves, and then have those conventions, and then whoever emerges, which is going to be an interesting perspective for us to watch in the days ahead. But gentlemen, we have to thank both of you for talking to us today, Dr. Kachi Ononuju and Dr. Ahmed Salaman. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much, somebody.
Thank you for having me.
All right, then we will be back in just a moment and focus on an equally important matter without which I don't know if we'll be doing anything or moving forward, but just join us in a moment. We'll be back.
Well, thanks for staying with us. Still on the issues raised by the northern governors in that meeting, and of course the statement that they released subsequently. We have two gentlemen join us this morning, but let's begin with Lieutenant Commander John Danjuma, who is a former intelligence officer with the Nigerian Navy. Thanks for joining us this morning. You have seen and heard and possibly even read a number of things that the Nigerian governors said in that meeting, northern governors, beg your pardon, said in that at their meeting, and the resolutions released. First, the problems are there, and they also spoke about some interventions and gave some updates. First, what's your view on some of those things, recommendations and updates given as a result of the insecurity status in the north?
We've got ourselves into a cycle, and if we don't remove ourselves from that cycle, we're not going to make any headway. Whenever politicians talk, we seem to get engrossed in what they are saying, and we forget the real issues of development and of uplifting the standard of living of our people. The response of Governor Lalong of Plateau State, speaking on behalf of the northern governors. And incidentally, I wonder why also, when we get into heavy weather, we don't rely on the institutions that the Constitution has empowered, to resolve conflicts. As I check as a layman into my Constitution, there is nothing called Governors Forum or Northern Governors Forum or Southern Governors Forum. So I think that what the governor, let me just go straight to your question. The answer of the governor to the Southern
but if I could just clarify, just a minute.
Yeah.
The perspective, this has got to do with security, not the political decision that they made. Because remember, they said they reviewed security updates from the region, and then there were certain resolutions which, amongst which they decided to resolve to work together, synergy between frontline states, as well as working with federal government to address the security concerns. So that is a perspective with which we'd like you to respond.
Well, even then, I can confidently tell you that you cannot compartmentalize security in the sense that you fight security separately from the north, as against the south. We must begin to see that government as a whole, is the problem, and not the regions that are the problem. I like to say that, to repeat the words of James, without attempting to sound sanctimonious, St. James said that wherever you see conflicts, wherever you see insecurity, check and you will discover that it is because of unfulfilled desires. If it is true that there are over 100 million Nigerians that are destitute, that means that they don't have their desires, basic desires, fulfilled. And
trying to understand, pardon me, to get your trajectory, but are you suggesting that perhaps during strategy sessions or security strategy sessions, you cannot geolocate where some of these crimes or banditry occurs, and then you zero on them and address those concerns? Is that the point you're making?
Well, first of all, I am generalizing to say that the insecurity in Nigeria today is not only in the north, in the south. If you try to solve the security problem just based on what the northern governors are doing and what the southern governors are doing, you are not likely to get to the solution of the problem. I'm simply saying, look at the way we are running our affairs, for example. Are we trying to say that the budget of this nation, for example, that it is normal that even if you continue to spend over 70% of the earnings of this country on
that's a different
expenditure?
I'm not sure it'll be quite easy to link some of those points. Yeah. So what I'm trying to find out is that, are you then suggesting that governors in the north cannot meet and say, look, we've seen this trajectory of what is happening, we have to collaborate? So if they say, look, we need to review security situations in different areas since they're all neighboring states, is that out of place because you say you cannot look at it from a region because it affects the country? I'm trying to get that point.
Okay. There is nothing wrong in regional cooperation, whether politically, economically, or in whatever area. But I am saying that even with that, even at that, it is not, there is nothing wonderful about that. The Amotekun is a regional security attempt to solve the security problem. So I'm not against it. But I am saying that it is like a diversionary, it is diversionary. It is not hitting the nail on the head. Even with the regional cooperation, for so long as you have the same situation subsisting, it is likely to take us round again. We will come back to discussing this same issue.
So if you were to hit the nail on the head, what would it be?
Yep. To hit the nail on the head, let us address the economic problem, the poverty problem of Nigeria. That is where the problem is. And if you fail to do that, if you fail to meet the basic needs of over 100 million people, half our population is destitute. And it is destitute partly because the people in government consume over 70% of the income, of the oil income. And if you think that by the governors coming to form regional security outfits or regional cooperation alone, that will solve the problem, I am thinking we've already gone past that.
Yeah, but so does that suggest that if they were to address those concerns, will it happen immediately? Because if they come up policies, wouldn't it take a while before those policies kick in? And in the meantime, what should they do? They should wait until it kicks in?
Okay, the urgency, for example, with which suggestions are addressed. We have said, for example, that communities, should be able to protect themselves. And we have made such suggestions. How many months now? Maybe going to years. But in the past week, for example, about 40 people were just plucked out like flies. In Southern Kaduna. Are you telling me that if those people had formed a defense, since government, there is no way with the number of army, with the number of security agencies today, there is no way government can defend the people. So we are saying that if people are equipped to defend themselves, it will go a long way towards serving it will have a deterrent effect on those people who just climb their motorcycles, going around the country and plundering. Since when did we make that decision? Has government done anything about it? No.
What part of the law will support that equipment?
Oh, you mean that the law, it will take forever to make the law? How long does it take to make?
You say if people are equipped to defend themselves, then there will be results. And I'm asking, all right, so what part of the law will support that if whoever was to carry that out?
You are assuming that making the laws are not part of solving the security problems.
Oh, so you're talking about a non-existent law. Are you referring to a non-existent law at the moment?
I can answer you in two ways. First of all, do you know that there is a natural law which is higher than the Constitution, which automatically means that we should protect yourself, either as an individual or as a community. In fact, in the American Constitution, they say that the right of the people to protect themselves, to defend themselves, shall not be taken away from them. So it should even have been a constitutional matter that people should be able to defend themselves and not wait for the government that is not existent in defending them. We have consistently said that Nigeria, there are many ungovernable spaces.
Don't also forget that it's public knowledge that your right stops where mine starts. But that's further conversation for another time. Let's quickly bring in our friend Onanubo, who is a security consultant, into this. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Onanubo. Well, this conversation we're having is about the resolution of the Northern Governors Forum, especially concerning security. The first of their resolutions reads as such. The forum reviewed security updates from the region and observed the need for a sustained synergy and coordinated efforts between the federal and northern states governments, while noting success of recent measures. First of all, what do you make of that particular part? Because there are those who wonder why, if that's been sustained and been as successful as been said, there wouldn't have been another attack about the same time that meeting was going on.
Well, thank you very much. I first would commend the northern state governors. I believe that it's their constitutional responsibility as the chief security officers of their respective states to show concern. And also their call for synergy is timely, if not belated, because security is a general concern. We all want to be safe. No part of Nigeria in turmoil does or benefits any part of the whole country, because the effect of what is happening in one location flows to the rest of the country. And that's a very serious concern. I also know that they're just repeating what calls that have been put out there for a sustained synergy between the various agencies involved in this engagement. So I commend them, and I also wish there could be political will from them as well that drives the quest for a secure northern Nigeria. But let me also underscore an issue here. I think it's time we stop regionalizing Nigeria when we are addressing the issues of security, because there are no parts of this country where you don't have all the ethnic nationalities that make up Nigeria residing, either by official posting as government employees or as entrepreneurs and businessmen. We have Nigerians everywhere. Right now, we don't have the Nigeria where there is north, south, east, west, exclusive to the people in that region. So I also want to see that begin to play out among our political class. This regionalization of Nigeria and our problems is making it difficult for us to own up to these challenges and address them holistically.
All right, so in that case, perhaps in addition to the suggestions you want to give, how would you then suggest they should have approached this?
Well, I think we should call for a national security emergency. There should be a state of emergency declared in Nigeria. Frankly speaking, the situation has gone out of hand, and the security agencies have been drained. They've deployed. We are losing men in hundreds. We are getting weaker. We are spending so much money. The budget of the security, from what we read on the papers, has gone so high. We're putting so much into security and to secure our safe space that we are deploying in other areas of the sector. So there should be an emergency approach to this situation.
Well,
we see that
we're still on that same point, because if you look at different states, the police themselves, for instance, they got different state commands to address those matters, as opposed to just having it, just one umbrella. Just thinking about how some of those concerns that you have raised, because if you go through the comments of that resolution, there were references to synergy with the federal government a number of times. So when you say how they should have approached this, one wonders how much of the concerns or the challenges or the solutions lies with the governors and how much of it lies with the federal government. Because if they reference synergy with the federal government, it does suggest as though enough of that has not been done. Because, if you remember, Niger State Governor some time ago did say point blank that he's not getting the kind of support he wants from the federal government. Can we gloss over that?
Yes, I think sometimes the politicians make statements that probably they hope to make them popular among the people. Security issues, as it stands today, should not be politicized. And I really wish I could beg some of the governors.
What part of this is being politicized?
For instance, for a sitting governor to come to the public and
make a point that he's not getting support from the federal government. Now, the local community, the local people in the state from where he's speaking, we consider that as marginalization. They would take political interpretations into some of these things. There are established protocol or channels of communicating such sensitive information. The president is the commander-in-chief. The state governors are the head of securities constitutionally in their state, supported by federal government establishments like the police, the army. There is no state in this country where you don't have military formations, police commands, and...
Did you actually listen to what he said on that particular day? About how he had taken, tried to explore all of those channels and nothing was forthcoming?
If he made such a public statement, it's not something that should be encouraged. At this particular time, we are managing threatening national security issues. There should be some level of, management, information management that we have to observe at this time, because people are dated, there's tension everywhere, the situation is charged.
In other words,
we should have a...
In other words, he should not have spoken up or raised the challenges which he thinks he is facing as the chief security officer of the state.
Not in a public forum, because there should be channels of expressing, except if there are personal issues that is affecting his operations, which he thinks are deliberate. You always know that the media wants stories like this. They make a good sell for their, news. So we just need to see how we can kind of tinker some of the communication styles of our political leaders. And to be honest with you, a lot of them are making statements that gives them credibility, acceptance, and then a broad reach among their people. So we should be careful.
I don't know. I'm trying to still get your line of thought when you say the media makes, sales of some of these things. I mean, we're talking about lives of people here. I don't think the media looks forward to people who have been killed on a regular basis, because don't forget, they put their lives on the line as well to get whatever news item that they want. So it's not exactly correct to say that, they gloat over this kind of matters.
Social media, please, because I think there is a lot more problem from, I'm sorry, but I'm not talking of the mainline medias, but the social media platform, which actually feeds 90% of Nigerians with information. Most times they're unverifiable. So we are victims of our own making, not the mainline media. The mainline media have pushed, and I commend them for...
That notwithstanding, correct us if it's wrong, it also comes across as though you're saying that the people who elected the officials shouldn't have the officials maybe talk to them about the challenges and the issues they face, because they're supposed to be reporting to the people. So if they're talking about the challenges they've got, what's wrong with that? Because, I mean, people want to hear, so they want solutions to their challenges as well. And don't forget, investors also look to these key officers to take investment decisions. So if they are quiet about this, don't you think it will send the wrong signal as though they are overwhelmed and there's no solution coming forth, especially if the killings continue?
Well, I understand the concern, and I do not advocate for censorship. However, I think there should be some level of maturity. Let me give you an instance. There is a lot of ethnic agitations across the country. There's some other underlying undeclared political pictures that the next election is by the way. So people who didn't also perform so well in certain areas of their constitutional duties could also leverage on these things and make excuses. Now, I'm not going to go into that because I'm not alleging that these are excuses. However, I'm trying to point out the fact that there should be a protocol, followed in sharing public information. Let's educate the people. Let's also put the correct pictures to the people. When we begin to show internal conflict in the system, that I'm not being supported or I'm being supported, these other people are more supported than this area, those are red flags. And I don't think that's what we need. Now, should I, as a governor, express my frustrations to the people I'm leading if I am not getting the best of what I expected from the central? Certainly. But it is about how these things are passed on. Nobody
That
says
really
we should
is
not
the issue.
keep our people informed.
Yes, perhaps that really is the issue. It's not the what that is being done, it's the how, in your opinion, that thing is being done. Which also, you know, tapers into the conversation in that resolution of the Nigerian Governors Forum, the Northern Governors Forum, beg your pardon, where they talked about sustained synergy and coordinated efforts, perhaps underscoring the fact that maybe they have been going on, maybe sometimes things don't really go the way they ought to go, and consequently these issues that you have been raised, and which of course some governors may have had issues with. But let me take this back to Lieutenant Commander John Danjuma. The meeting also noted with concern the constraint of the security services and urged the armed forces to embark on simultaneous operations and resolved to share the plans of the frontline states, come up with common issues with other regions, and assured of its readiness to work in synergy with the federal government of Nigeria. The part that I'm interested in and that I would like you to speak to, Commander John Danjuma, is the part that talks about the concern of the constraint of the security services. In your own opinion, and from your experience perhaps, and I'm pretty sure you still have some information here and there, given it's northern Nigeria, what kind of constraints, or how do you think those constraints that security agencies across board are having, how seriously do you think they are being engaged or taken on to address the issues of insecurity in the region?
Wow. You know, the question of synergy, you know, among the security organizations has been a problem. Coordination, for example, if you look at the scourge of maybe 100 people on motorcycles, you know, going around the country, rampaging into communities, you know, and just killing at will. You know, I have asked myself, is it that there is no coordinated effort? Can we not use technology, you know, to track these people and to preempt, you know, their own strike, to prevent them from going into these communities? So there is a lacuna generally. I see that there is no combat information center or operation center, you know, that is looking at the country as a whole and, you know, and attacking each of the security problems as they arise or as they exist in the different localities. You know, so, but my point is this: why is it that, what is holding us from allowing the governors to be the true chief security officers of their states? You know, why is the suspicion that they would misuse such powers? You know, so we need to realize that structurally, you know, the way the country is structured, which is not a federation or a federation only in name, the unitary structure of the police or of the security organization in the country is truly a big problem. Must we not see that just one single individual, Mr. President, is in charge of the Navy, the Army, Navy, Air Force, DIA, NIA, and all the other, including the police? Definitely,
that definitely is.
wrong.
I think it is also a conversation that's being considered at various levels, because we always hear that there's a need to rejig the security architecture and all of that. You are more in the security space than I am, but there's a question that I'd like to ask you before. Go on, very quickly. Go on, very quickly on that.
Yeah, I just want to say that with the kinds of laws we have, with the powers given to the governors, there will always be a loophole for them to make excuses and say that they are not able to do this or that because they are not fully empowered.
Let me ask you this question just before we go, because this is something that happened also in the north. Just recently, we understand that Zamfara State has had its telecom services shut down in order to fight banditry. And even the House of Reps has requested that it should be extended to about 3 or 4 local governments in Sokoto State, which is a neighboring state to Zamfara. And there is a report from the officials in the state, in Zamfara State, that it has worked to an extent in stemming the tide of insecurity. How significant or effective do you see that policy if it is sustained? It's about 6 days already.
I particularly like the analogy of someone who said that if you find that there is snake in a room, you now lock the door, switch off the light in your bid to kill the snake. It is as ridiculous as that you cut your nose to spite your face. Telecoms is actually to be used, in fighting insecurity or crime and criminality. You need to be able, to communicate. So what you should use is even to use the strength of the criminal against himself by using that same technology. You cannot deny yourself technology, in order to fight crime and criminality. It stands logic on its head. I do not think, I seriously doubt.
Yeah, let me ask Mr. Ononuji the same question just before we begin to sign off. Beg your pardon, Mr. Ononubo. That position of the Zamfara state government affects a good number of states around, and including Sokoto State until recently. What's your position on that, Mr. Ononubo? Oh, well, I understand that he's on it. Okay, go ahead.
I almost lost you.
Well, I'm
here. Can I have the question again?
Yeah, what's your position or your take on the shutdown of telecom services in Zamfara State, affecting some parts of neighboring states as well, in the bid to fight insecurity, stem the tide of banditry?
Well, it has its pros and cons. And I'm sure part of what might have informed that decision could be the suspicion that we have internally coordinated compromise on strategies by the military, because there are certain things we shouldn't say so as not to discourage and bring down the motivations of our officers and men. But there seems to be very strong suspicion that the structures of deployment seems to be leaking water somewhere, and I would really not just see the shutdown of the telecom system as just the problem. That is unsafe on its own, because the military needs to effectively coordinate their engagements. However, where there are suspicions that some of the personnel might be in alliance with the insurgents and probably passing information to them that have resulted in our losing our men in some locations, gives one concern. And I'm sure every commander would want to go out and come back with his men and team intact successfully.
Okay.
So,
well, Mr. Onugo, I apologize. Yeah, we are completely out of time now, but your position on that matter is taken. We have to thank you very much for your part in our program today. Alfred Onugo is a security consultant, along with former intelligence officer of the Nigerian Navy, Lieutenant Commander John Danjuma. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and thoughts this morning.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take a look at this first email coming through from Abdul Salam Yusuf, who says about the Northern Governors' resolution, saying perhaps the Southern Governors should edit their statement as, quote, the presidency should go to the South in 2023, unquote. The modal verb must, in this context, is giving the Northern Governors more avenue to justify their resolutions with the 1999 Constitution as amended.
Interestingly, the word should was used in the Lagos Declaration. It's only in the Enugu Declaration that we had must.
So did they ignore the first one that read should and chose the one that went with must?
I wasn't at that meeting, Jim.
No, but you just told us what happened.
Well, I saw the... You are a superior officer in this matter, so don't even let's start it. Ademola Lalade here says, to be honest, we are not serious as a nation. Those in leadership positions are not interested in moving the nation forward, but are only interested in themselves. And that is why the country is stagnant, so to say. I believe if our leaders have the interests of the nation at heart and really want the country to grow, then they should do the needful and put in place proper and effective machineries that will drive the country in the right direction. Create an enabling environment for all sectors of the economy to thrive. For me, it is the interest of the country first before any other thing.
Shagun Lushola says these Northern Governors at one time or other must have benefited from rotational system at subnational level to get to where they are today. So does it mean that what was good for the goose at state level is no longer applicable for the gander at national level? Let's keep our fingers crossed as time will tell.
Professor Enakina says our national security architecture must be redefined and its managers must do a total re-evaluation on how to nip this asymmetric warfare in the bud, I guess if we want to say, while political sponsorship of criminality must be abhorred and condemned, and those involved should be prosecuted to serve as a deterrent.
Says the argument about where the next president should come from has further exposed the mistrust in our political system. The main political parties in our country should open up the pathways to our diverse youths so that they can take their rightful place in our political space.
For John Agbo Henry, the NGF statement after that meeting in Kaduna is disgraceful, unthinkable, and shameless. How can they be talking about power shift when the country is in disaster? Nowhere in Nigeria is safe. Even the day the meeting was held, attacks still happened in Kaduna. This shows what concerns our leaders in the country. It's just power. I use this time to urge all youths to get their PVCs. If they don't have, let's do the needful.
Well, Timi Afolabi says, until we deal with the commercialization, religionization, politicization, and regionalization of the war against insecurity, we can never make any headway. All right, there you go. That is it today. We're to look at some of your messages. Thank you all for letting us be a part of your day today. We will see you next time. I'm Chamberlain Oso.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Stay safe and have a good day.